We're going to talk about golf now, and back in 2009, the book Dream On caught the public's imagination. It shot to #1 in the sports book charts. John Richardson, he was a hacker who couldn't break 100. He set himself the target of playing a level par round within a year. Everybody said he couldn't do it. He did, and now it's being made into a film. Morning to you, John.
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
Very well, very well. Just remind us, if some of our listeners aren't particularly familiar with the book, just how the idea came about and where the title of it came from.
Yeah, the idea came about, it was one of those kind of relatively classic childhood dreams that was then forgotten as you sort of, reach your, I suppose, early middle age, as I was described in a magazine recently.
That's not very kind.
I saw Seve in 1983 when I was about 15 at the Irish Open. And he was at the peak of his amazing kind of swashbuckling powers, and I thought, a couple of friends and I, we thought, this would be the greatest lifestyle in the world, to try and go become like Stevie. So it set in my mind this dream that I could perhaps be a good golfer. Now, I wasn't in any way at that stage, and then I discovered, girls and beer, and completely gave up on golf, for about 20 years. So I reached a golfer who could not break 100. And a friend of mine was a golf pro, and we sat and talked about, the whole industry and whether it would be possible to try and take somebody like me to see whether they could break par within a year, and he believed that it was possible. So eventually, I sort of then put that off for a few years too, but eventually I set out to try and break par within a year. At that stage, I was shooting about 110, but I shot a control round with another golf pro of 103. And 362 days later, I shot a 1 under par round at Blackwood Medical Course. I shot a 70, and it's par 71. And I had about 70,000 golf balls during the year and read about 60 books on golf, and just endlessly and obsessionally devoted myself to golf. But during the year, a friend of mine spoke to Sam Torrance, and he said to him that he had a friend who, had a full-time job, was wife and child, normal kind of lifestyle, and that he was trying to break par within a year and couldn't break 100. And Sam Torrance said, "Tell him to dream on." So that's where the title came from.
Absolutely incredible story. Just for any non-golfers out there, how difficult is it to play a level par round when you are shooting 110?
Well, I think it's difficult to get exact statistics, but I think less than 2% of golfers ever break par. So it was 33 strokes off within a year. I endlessly blogged about it and asked an awful lot of golfers, professional and non-professional, and nobody said it was possible. Of course, the interesting thing about these kind of challenges, once you've done it, then people say, oh, I'm sure that was possible, but nobody said it whilst I was doing it. It's sort of it's going from being a very bad golfer, or well, mediocre bad, not a complete beginner, but a bad golfer, to becoming, I suppose, a top 2% golfer, and our top 2% maybe, I suppose, could perhaps exaggerate it a little bit. Not a professional golfer certainly, but within that top couple of percent.
And when you were first doing this quite outrageous challenge, did you ever think one day, this might hit the big screen?
Well, I have a slightly overactive imagination, I have to say. And in those, when I was increasingly annoying my wife, and when things were going well, though, I did sometimes in my mind have this image of, yes, this could be the big screen, and everybody will see me, this could be turned into an amazing film, a Rocky-type film. But of course, when things were going bad, which was more than half of the time, those visions were completely gone. It took me I had 83 rejections for the book. So during that whole process, there was certainly nothing in my mind that was making me think that this might be turned into a film.
Wow, 83 rejections.
That's 83 sort of humiliations, really.
What sort of stage are we at now with the film? Are we in production? When's it likely to be?
We're in pre-production. They, in theory, start shooting on the 7th of March. They are all set up at the at Elstree Studios in North London. Still haven't confirmed who will play me, but everything else is kind of in place. There's been a rewrite on the script that's completed now. They're just sort of pulling together all of those other kind of movie-type things, the other bits of the casting where they will shoot the actual, golf scenes, and that's not 100% finalised too. It was going to be shot over here in Northern Ireland, but because surprisingly there's quite a big film industry here, but it's now likely to be all done in and around Elstree. just because it's so well geared up for that, and there are an awful lot of golf courses around there that also, would be very keen to have something like that shot on it.
You mentioned that it hasn't quite been cast yet who's going to play you. Who have you got in mind? Do you fancy some Hollywood hunk coming over, Brad Pitt possibly playing yourself?
It's impossible not to ever think of Brad Pitt. You just kind of, I think if you get in this sort of position and you're a guy and you're, in your early 40s, you just think, yeah, it's got to be Brad Pitt. It's got to be Brad Pitt. I think if it was Brad Pitt, my wife would be very keen, to play herself in it. And I'm not sure whether that would be allowed.
Oh, brilliant. That's excellent. Obviously, many times in these sporting films, they have special cameo appearances from professional golfers. Northern Irish golf really is on the map. Graham McDowell, Darren Clarke, Rory McIlroy. Do you expect any of those? Do you fancy any of those getting involved?
Well, I mean, as you say, Northern Irish golf is just kind of crazy at the moment. So obviously, if there was any way to get all of them involved, that would be amazing, because we do seem to be, in a very odd way, dominating the world of golf at the moment. Rory actually is in the book because I did all of my practice at the same range that Rory was at when he was about 15 or 16. So there's a whole chapter kind of about playing alongside him. And this is before Rory became Rory, if you know what I mean. And to begin with, I didn't even know who he was. So it would be great, yes, if he could be involved. Certainly, Darren Clarke also gave me a quote during the challenge too, and he said it would be a minimum of 3 years before anybody could do what I managed to do. So I think, yeah, there's certainly scope for some cameos. There's also, there's even scope to have a David Flaherty character, because David Flaherty actually is from Bangor, which is where I'm sitting as we speak right now.
Interesting. And also, when you get lots of books being turned into films, there's often talk, how similar is it to the book? Yeah. When you got the drafts through, were you pleased with them? Did you want to make any changes? How close is the film going to be to the book itself?
Well, the reality of anything like this is you have to turn a story into higher highs and lower lows. So you're trying to cram it into an hour and a half, and you've also got to bring that audience on a perhaps, on a greater journey than they go through in the book. Now, there were some pretty hefty highs and lows in the book too, but they've turned it a little bit more into a romantic comedy. In other words, they've played up just how much I managed to irritate my wife, and I did, of course, manage to irritate her fairly aggressively anyway, but they've exaggerated all of that, and it is more of a romantic comedy, and perhaps the lows go lower, and the crescendo of me hitting the 1 under par round at the end is certainly somewhat exaggerated. But I was surprised how close they stuck to my original story, actually. I think I was probably expecting it to be more, to be a little bit more different.
And we know you're a pretty decent golfer now. How's your acting? Do you fancy a little go in it?
Yeah, they actually have me down for a little sort of a cameo role, and I can't say exactly what it is yet, but I was, sort of thinking back to being in the school play, which is quite some number of years ago, and it would be fair to say I wasn't very good. So, they have me down for a cameo role. Whether I'm actually good enough for that to make the final cut, I suppose, is an entirely different thing. But yeah, it'd be a nice thought.